Didn't even have his number one wide receiver.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
couple we can put in there yet too.
Looks like
So,
old Cuzzy could be a dude.
come on now. All right. So speak of dudes being dudes. Let's take a little look back at the Kansas race in the past weekend. So we'll kind of dive into Kansas, review that a little bit, and then we'll touch on Bristol going ahead for the elimination race underneath the lights at Bristol, which is going to be a doozy. Tyler Reddick wins that race on what seemed like a wild move on the front stretch. A few storylines in there. Obviously, MTJ, my pick to win the whole deal. We're on the bubble.
Raggy.
Yep, we're on the bubble already, so that's awesome. But has a tire go down, smashes her up. He's done for the day. You got Larson, who ran well, finished well, get into it with his teammate on pit lane. Reddick goes ahead and wins that race. But what do we feel like are our big takeaways from the Kansas weekend here at the Cup Series?
Nobody is safe as a playoff driver.
Nope.
Nobody's safe. I mean, the only two that are comfortable right now are Larson and Reddick because they got the wins under their belt. That's plain and simple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And especially going into Bristol, I mean, it's a crapshoot as it is. Some guys are that you didn't expect towards the bottom, and some guys you probably didn't expect to be deep into the play or high up in the points or pretty high up in the points. So that's gonna be a big one. But no, Kansas, I mean, it's produced a great race again. There was 4 lanes of racing all over the track. Guys were swapping back and forth, and it really came down. You didn't know who was going to win, especially on that last restart to boot too.
Yep.
Cam, do you have the stuff pulled up?
I do.
Yeah, you want to share your screen? Because I got going back to one of our previous episodes. One of the hot takes that you had that I thought was pretty hot, and stuff still got to go wrong for it to happen. Actually, no, it looks like he is if he has a terrible weekend. But Kellen, one of the hot takes was Busher.
Yep.
Busher getting the axe.
Yep.
And a guy that things go haywire this past weekend and gets a bad flat tire. And I'm not literally, he's going into Bristol. And if something goes wrong early, he gone.
For sure.
So that was what I thought was a hot take when you said it. Busher, yeah, he's not gonna make it out of the first round. I'm like, pump the brakes. But here we sit at 9, the hottest car going into the playoffs, and he is one right front flat from going home from the whole deal. So
I told you guys. And
interesting storyline coming into the weekend. And I don't think there's a bigger headline than MTJ, what happened to him. I mean, guy's been on a roll the entire year, and here we sit. I mean, the first 5 laps of that race, I don't think he even made it 5 laps. But did you see him just dropping like a stone? I mean, middle of the track, 2 cars dang near on each side, and he's just like sitting still. And it's like, dude, is he down a couple cylinders or what is happening? And sure shit, I go to the fridge to get something to eat, and I come back, and that car is fenced. It's like you knew MTJ's car was a ticking time bomb from the moment the green flag dropped. It was so.
Did you see?
I like Martin Truex Jr. too, so actually kind of gutted for him that happened. But again, that's a contender that we all picked. Pretty sure we all picked him in our final 4, and here we sit coming into the cutoff race, and we're 7 below the cut. So,
see
I don't know. It's gonna be a wild weekend.
Do you see the puncture in the tire that put him in the wall from James?
Yeah, on Twitter, James Small posted it, and what was the yep, the caption was JFC or something.
MFL or MFL.
I
What a way
mean,
for your day to just end.
oh, dude, that's terrible.
But no, I will agree with it. Go ahead, Cal. Sorry.
Yeah, your regular season champ, dude, he's sitting 13th after 2 bad weeks. Like he had the catbird seat going into the playoffs. Like, okay,
Just had to cruise.
right. You got to run the laps and finish the race. And I'm looking at it going, man, he can have a bad week. He's just got to finish. And I figured that going along, but okay, Darlington, yup. Darlington, I can see, yeah, I understand something happening there. But to be this regular season champion, you're out the first round. That's my guy I picked for my champ. And I thought Rowdy was a little bit of a long shot, and he's coming in there sitting seventh. And he's not out of the woods yet, but he's just got to finish the race and he's going to be okay.
Yep.
Like that's crazy to me because I felt like I picked Rowdy where he was hot early, but a little bit of a long shot. And now we're sitting here going, if he runs the laps and he crosses the finish line, like he'd have to finish dead last to not make it out of the round of 16. So the other thing is, again, we talked about him before, the 17. He's 13 above, but
he finishes the race.
Just to me, he's not a powerhouse playoff guy. And maybe this is his coming out party. I don't know. But to me, he's got the wins, and I guess his teammate there, Brad K, is sitting in fifth, which Brad K isn't winning races, but the dude he's finishing in the top, I should even say he's finishing in that 6 to 12 range where he's scoring points and he's running up front most of the day. But again, you go to a track like this, and we've seen it before. Look at the 9 and the 4. Who is going to go a lap down early, and who's going to be the guy that says, I'm going to help my teammate? It's going to get interesting because, as they say in the racing world, it's short track racing. Oh, I don't know, man. It's a crapshoot. You're going to have somebody get moved early. You could have a Brad K or a Blaney or a Chastain who's pissed a lot of guys off. You could have a guy get moved early, and pretty soon Truex and Bubba Wallace could get in for all we know. If a couple of these guys get tangled up yet, you don't know at Bristol. So the hard part is you catch lap traffic so quick. Yep. That's where your struggle is. And somebody like Chastain, who's got a lot of issues with people, and it might not even be a lead lap car that he gets tangled up with. He takes somebody with him. Those two are out, and you got two guys that are below the cut line, and they get in. It's going to be nuts.
Hey, before we jump into the preview of Bristol, I still think we got some unspoken words on this past weekend. So, a couple things I was thinking to cover there is, on one of our previous episodes, was it last week or the week before?
Yep.
We talked about Eric Jones, and we talked about him.
Not burying him.
Yeah. Needless to say, if Eric Jones watched that episode, he probably's never coming on the podcast. But but if maybe he saw it and maybe that was the sole reason. Maybe he got really motivated by our podcast. I'm not sure. But I mean, hey, that's somebody who we buried and must have motivated him, because what a run for him.
Probably his best finish of the year.
Yeah. And this is something like, again, we talked about it, like he should be a top we said 12 to 20 every week.
Yeah.
But hey, here we go. He shows a flash like this. I'm not saying he has to do this every single week, but I think going forward, for his job security, he's got to show this a little bit more often.
This has got to be a once in every 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. This can't be a twice a year type of situation.
And it almost should be something too where you get to a certain type of track and you should be expected to do well there as well. It's just so hit and miss on where he does good and where he doesn't that that's where the conversation comes up. He goes and does something good like this, but if we go to another mile and a half or a multi-groove wide sweeping track like at the formerly Auto Club or Michigan, how well is he going to do at places like that? Is that going to be something that he's known to run good at these type of tracks now?
Yep. So I don't know.
Another headline we kind of talked about, Kellen, we briefly mentioned, but the 9 car. Mr. H almost had that boot so far up the 9's hind end in that Monday morning meeting. I mean, could you imagine?
No, I couldn't.
Caused a tire rub for the 5 or knocked the right front toe link in, or could you imagine the conversations he would have been having as he door slams them coming off a pit road?
Fired. That would be the conversation. It'd be a one-way ticket and it's not getting in.
But yeah, Kellen, we kind of talked about too. I believe, there's continuity in those race teams and everybody's days and roses, but he was Mr. H's star for the last few years, and money's come in, and I don't know. I would hope that he's not getting a little bit pissed off that somebody's stealing the spotlight or whatever, but I don't know. That was a thought that came to my mind when I watched him door slam Larson coming off a pit road, a playoff contender, your teammate who's already advanced. Like, why?
That was silly, right? But the crazy part is they both won championships as teammates.
Yep.
So that's the crazy part to me is like, yeah, obviously you're teammates and you're obviously racing to win, but at the end of the day, you both have won championships. I just wonder if the derailment of this season is just like he's starting to look for what is going on and he's struggling with that, and it's like any little thing in his temper is just, or his patience is just so short that he just kind of not lashes out, but he gets a little.
There's a lapse of judgment. I mean, look at earlier this year at the Coke 600 with what he did with Denny. It suspended him a race.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I think, to your point, I think that might be some of it. Clearly not the year anybody in the sport has expected. And I don't know if it's just, he's got a short fuse because of the way the years went for him. He doesn't have, whatever, but I thought it was kind of cheap of him to say too, after the race, they said, what kind of message were you trying to send to Kyle coming off pit road? And, bang him. He said, I wasn't trying to send a message.
Yeah.
Nothing.
That's what honestly, I guess bothered me the most was that he's trying to play it off so hard that nothing was there. But I mean, it was clear as day that something had happened. And he actually went on Sirius XM radio today to talk about that. And he had this to say when asked about it. It said there was a lot going on. Obviously, we ran each other on pit road, and I didn't have the full picture of what went on. So he's frustrated. Stuff happens for sure. At the end of the day, I'll certainly take the blame for my frustration on that front. Good news is he and I can have a conversation like adults, and it's a non-issue. Bad news is it's a non-issue for all of y'all for everybody that wants to talk about it. There's nothing to talk about. He's still trying to play it off. Like,
I think his biggest growing pains, and side note quick, Tanner English is rolling off on the pole at Falls tonight for Castrol. But I just, the moment that he got woken up was the date when him and Harvick got together at Bristol. Was that 2 years ago? Last year, 2 years ago in the playoffs.
2 years ago.
I think for him, that was like when the camera shines in your face, you got to get out of the race car and answer questions. And Harvick is beyond pissed at the world. I think that was a moment that he figured out how to answer the questions to play things off. In that moment, I think it was I was racing for position and I was battling to stay on the lead lap, and I was doing these things. Like, I think he got that feeling of like, and I think he, right or wrong, he's figured out how to answer these questions to get out what he needs to get out of the situation. So I don't know.
You think he should run for office? He'd be a damn good politician.
He'll tell you what you want to hear, but then he'll do something different.
He's getting really good at not answering the question.